Sorry. To get the fresh air from that in the throats.
Yep. I'm gonna do a like the ram air does. They put the duct in on the actual deck lid, and it'll run over to a air filter bars.
Well, that's what I plan on doing is having a big old freaking scoop down there, not that little Fiero one I have, but you know, getting the one that has the side lines and just accentuate it further out. Yeah, but you know, smaller.
That makes sense because you're putting it out there. They need to have gas. Yeah. Everything is local. Sorry. No, you're right. Yeah, that's sorry. No, I don't. One of them has the whole parking.
Oh, were those installed yellow?
Right. I'll catch up with you later. Hey, stranger. Hi, how are you? Good. I was just talking. Yeah?
Go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. That's the mic. Yeah.
That's basically the prototype of the 3.4. Yeah, you open it, it looks. It's like a dual heavy dual.
Right?
Hey, you want to see how it starts out? Oh, yeah, we go out there.
I wanted to start off with Mr. John Callies, who was the director of Motorsports.
Anyway, I want to thank everybody for coming. It's really great to see friends from the past. I want a couple of special thanks. One goes to Hulky Aldecacci, because without his excitement and determined, the Fiero would have never been. But there's a second person, John Chanella and his team, that made the design. And John's passion was just like Hulky's. John wanted perfection out of his group in every area. And John was a big help when Bob Dorn in '83 called me and asked if I'd do the Pace Car program. And of course, John had done a fabulous drawing of what he wanted. And I wanted to mention a couple other people. John Cafaro, who was a young designer under John at the time, and John helped me immensely in all the race programs. It was great. Tim Peterson, who you saw earlier, and Tim's determination went third. And Tim, without Tim, we wouldn't have had the parts and pieces that we wanted as well. There's another person, Al Felixo, who had been there 35 years, and Al was just an absolute help because he knew everybody. Dave Aylen, who unfortunately lost about 7 months ago. Dave helped with the electronic fuel injection on the car. And then Bob Birchmeyer, diversified glass. And John Cafaro would go over and clay up stuff, and then Bob would make it for me. And it was just, I mean, it was unbelievable, his effort to make this happen. Paul Vanderlee at Vanderlee Engines in Mississippi. And one of the funny things was when Dave Aylen went down to Paul's shop in Mississippi, we had to get engineering terms changed to Southern Engineering. And so Dave had a whole dictionary that he made up talking to Paul. So In '83, when Bob said call, the first thing I had to do was, what are the requirements of Indy? And so, the fellow by the name of Roger McCluskey, who headed USAC, also would determine if the pace car was going to be capable, and he had to have his acceptance to make it work. So I finally got a hold of Roger, and I said, Roger, I'm doing this pace car program, what are the requirements? And he said, oh, it's not bad. He said, you got to go 125 miles an hour, and you have to stop in 500 feet. I said, what? So I hung the phone up, and I'm going, man, we have a 90 horsepower engine. Quickly figure out I need 200 horsepower to make it the speed. So at that point, Tom Goad called me and said, John, what do you think we need for engine parts? I said, a new engine. So then Tim got hooked up, and I sent an engine down to Paul's place, and I said, Paul, see what you can do with the cylinder head to get the airflow. So Paul worked and sent the cylinder head back to Tim, and Tim goes over to the foundry and rubs cores and starts making some cast iron heads. Well, we sent the heads back to Paul, and Paul goes, man, these things are so light, I can't fit the bigger valves I want in them. I can't do this, can't do that. And Tim had done a drawing of it. And so I said, okay, and I had a good friend at Brodex, the owner, JV, and I called JV and said, look, can you make me an aluminum head? And so we sent the drawings down there. 1 month later, I had the first aluminum head. Unbelievable. So we needed a block, a new block. And so I wanted to go with a high nickel block, and John Deere had a great foundry to do that. So Tim did the drawings up. I said, look, I need a thicker deck, need rails thicker, need this, need that, blah, 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 blah. And so Tim did the drawing, and we got the 500 castings built at John Deere. Blocked the heads, went to Norton Enterprises and got an 8 counterweighted crank, a 4340, and then we got the connecting rods, because I went to a 6-inch connecting rod with a Chevy rod journal and a Chevy main, just to make it easy for parts. And then we had to build oil pans, had to make a camshaft, had to do roller lifters. I mean, there wasn't any part of that engine, but we had to work on it. So I had all parts at Paul's place by November 1st. Now this was 4 months. It was unbelievable what we pulled together. So Paul puts it together and calls me up and goes, I got it running on a 2-barrel and made 240 horsepower. I go, ooh, great. So I call back to Pontiac, and everybody goes, that's BS, there's no way. Go call Paul back. I said, Paul, get the engine, drive it up to Pontiac, we'll put it on our dyno. So Paul did that, and made, at the time, 232 and 205 horsepower. So I knew we had some. So meanwhile, on the car side, I wanted to have an air scoop, and I wanted to put the safety light in the back, because everybody else who had been there always put it on top of the car. So I called John and said, man, can you draw me up something and make an airplane? So John did that, and his team came up, and the next thing is John Cafaro's over at Bob's place claying the thing up. The next thing is we got the hood scoop, so that was cool. So then the next thing is you know, the wheels can make or break a car. Well, there wasn't time to do what John wanted in a wheel design, but I had a friend at Centerline, owner, Ray Lipper. I got John to fly out to California. I met him at Ray's place, and they're talking over what Ray could do with his wheel. And John, our time limit was screwed. And John reluctantly agreed. Wouldn't have been his design if he'd started from scratch, but he said, do it. And John luckily agreed to this wheel, which you see on the pace cars. So that was a big thing, and we went to a 16-inch. I went to Goodyear, got low-profile tires, C-rated tires. Next thing I had to do trans axles. So I had to build new axles and CV joints so it handled the horsepower. Got that done, and went to Delco and got electric power steering, electric power brakes, so we didn't have to worry about that on the engines. Anyway, January 13th, headed to Indy. Now this is a high-class deal, so I've got the Fiero in the back of a U-Haul trailer. And of course, you know, the thing is, it was interesting, if you had dropped the Fiero out of a 747, you couldn't hit 125, right? So anyway, we arrived the 13th, it's 42 degrees. I'm going, man.
For many years.
Yeah, John sends his best. He wished he could have come, but family obligations did not allow him.
But if Jack was here, I'd tell him, this is my style of sketching, not his. This is my deal. But you know, we were doing a lot of neat stuff, and you can see there's a lot of bold ideas for future Fieros. Yep. I'll just
One little story about the Fiero is when we were doing the GT, and I said this, I'm not being bad when I say it, I said we need bigger wheels in the back and from the front, because it's mid-engine, there's more weight, and one more adhesion and control. They said, no, you're not going to get it. Can't do that. You could possibly have different cars, wheels in the back and the front, because if you get a flat, you can't use one here and there. And I said, believe me, you're going to need it. So we have always showed the car with bigger wheels in the back. Well, guess what? They built a mule. They tried it with the same size tires in the front. They put bigger tires in. They came to the studio and said, John, you got your bigger tires. So that's what that car would have had. And that's what would have been appropriate. That's why John drew the wheels bigger in the back too.
That's typical quick style sketching that we did back in the day. There's Jack on the first production car.
I have another story for you on the scoop John touched on it, the snorkel over the hood, over the roof. We were trying to do that in production. You know, the Trans Am had a shaker hood. We needed to have the Fiero have the snorkel. And we had one on a Fiero. And I can tell you honestly, when we drove it from Pontiac down to the studio, I don't know if you were with me when we did that. With the snorkel.
Yep.
People going crazy. Kids are, hey, where's mine? Hey, where can I get it? I'm not kidding. It was the same reaction we got when you showed the bird on the hood. The people did the same thing. We were crazy. But we were good crazy. And of course, John took the snorkel and put the light in it and got it to work. And again, somebody told me, a little fairy told me, well, we don't know how to manage the water. Everybody else can figure it out. So we didn't get the snorkel. So you can see that the guys in the studio, the 3 or 4 that you see in that artwork, they were on fire. And it really gave the studio a lot of ambiance and expression. And Chuck and Bill and Stan Wilde and Hank Hager and Jack Humbert, those people that came in during these times, just loved to come in and talk about cars, which got us excited because they liked what we were doing.
I think this is kind of the beginning of the GT, these little ballpoint sketches. And I think one thing I think is pretty cool, Pontiac, you know, we were looking at all these ground effect cars with the tunnels and the air traps underneath the car, and the engineering and manufacturing enabled the studio to do a very, very deep drawn fascia. So we're into these tunnels, and extreme ground effects before anybody was doing it. I think Lotus Esprit had it, but that was it. And then the Camaro got it, and of course Pontiac embraced it. But you know, these deep cutouts was a Pontiac deal. So
What I don't have, I gave Fred here a couple of pictures from the auditorium when we had the GT and the base car. He's got those pictures, and I'm sure he might. If you're nice, he'll share them with you. But I have not seen the rear, because the rear was pretty phenomenal. And I'm curious to see what the GT, when we see it tomorrow, what the rear end turned out to be just in prototype.
I want to let you guys know is we did the Bumblebee car, as we call it, and I called John and I said, look, I want to have a future way out paint job. And John said, okay, how many years? I said, well, I don't know, 10, 15. So he sends out a full style drawing out to Mesa, and I unroll it on the thing and I go, God, this is the ugliest damn thing I've ever seen. And so today I have a picture of the car, and that's where we did the dual overhead cam, 16 valve, 410 horsepower, 4-cylinder. And people will look at my shop and they'll go, well, who just built that car? And I go, no, the designers have the ability to look out 20 years, and it's spot on. And it's just, the talent to do that is just absolutely amazing.
And by the way, Mr. Callies here has done a lot of tinkering with Firebirds and Sunbirds and on and on. He did several things. And we'd go out and drive them at the proving grounds. It was a lot of fun. We were all having fun.
It's a nice juicy penguin sketch. Perfect.
These were like next-gen Fiero concepts. We had the plan for the Fiero facelift, but here again, John was challenging us. What would you do with an all-new architecture? Where could we take Fiero then?
this mic is hot, you know. It's really hot.
I know how.
But anyhow, I'm just gonna give the John, we'll pass it down the line. But I mean, everybody here is involved in design, and it's all integrated. And you know, the best part about being a designer on the boards back then, the business is very complicated now. We just sat down and created stuff and filled trash cans of, just kept trying different things. But Pontiac, you know, once they established this this kind of credibility of building excitement and doing great interiors and doing wild colors and winning championships and beating imports and doing all that stuff, and all the great work that was shown here with the people part of it in the plant. I mean, it was innovative from the plant floor to when we were conceiving new ideas to motorsports. It was integrated, but in a very small family way. When I got to Chevrolet, it is a huge operation. And motorsports now, it's easy to go racing because the CEO and president loves it. So we're going racing, and we're gonna go Formula One racing, all that stuff. Back then, you know, John, the budget, and you were kind of like a pirate, and you worked at night after work and in job shops. By the way, Bob, I saw out there, did you see the Ferrari, the Stelmac Ferrari out there? 308? I thought I'd do a second look. I thought it was a 308, but there was the Fiero. I don't know whether you guys did that. That was somewhere else, competitor. Oh, you were doing Ferrari now. But that's just kind of a side step. But all the race cars that we did at Bob's Shop, moonlighting and stuff like that. Pontiac was just like almost like a small Italian race car operation, like a coach builder, motorsports. The our advertising was aligned, the imagery. It was a little wild. I don't think you can pull that off in today's world, but it was all good. And the plant again, the Fiero plant, and what you could do with the innovation that Hulky brought, and Wes Seidel and all the body engineers. It was a neat place, and I don't know where the time went. I was only in there for a few years, but we generated this whole group a lot of great work. And you look back on that, there were no misfires with this team. Everything was one after the other.
Thanks, Mecca, working with us. And you saw that little hint of it on the corner there. Irv Bicky came down and said, you know, management's going to come down, and I don't want to mention the names. They're going to have a look at the Fiero. They want to see what this is all about, because we've already released the car. So we had it on the other side with the light, the big windows of the tech center, the studio. And Irv spotted the wheels. You've seen some of the wheels that we call them high tech. So Irv never seen it before. And you know, usually today I guess you got to get everything improved real quick. We were able to get things done and improved in the system. We didn't have to go through all of the portals, as they say. And Irv asked me, what's that wheel, John? And it's asymmetrical, of course, not symmetrical. I said, that's high tech. You know, it's a more youthful expression. Oh, okay, good. So he leaves. He said, I'll see you later. Make sure the studio's clean, which we always did. In comes the big guy. We go over to the side of the car, and I'm standing behind, and here's the big guy, and here's Irv. We're looking at the car. Just picture the red Fiero there. He's looking at it. Says to Irv, he says, and with a scowl, what are those wheels? And I looked up in the studio, and the guys were hiding. And I said, oh shit, it's going to happen now. And Irv says, you don't know what that is? No, Irv, what is it? High tech, youthful. Oh, okay. And with that, we just kept trucking. Think outside the box, be excited, be happy. And I just, having the studio at that time was a blessing in my life. And John, it was like you almost could do no wrong. We stayed out of trouble a lot. Because you could...
We got other people in trouble.
That's true. They're our friends now.
Go ahead and cue Bob Birchmeyer.
But I want to thank, first of all, John Callies and all the Johns here. All the Johns are here, yes.
Just pictures, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Because it started with John Callies with my shop. My name is Bob Birchmeyer, and I own the Diversified Glass Products in Pontiac, north end of Pontiac, just north of the Pontiac plant. And I went by DGP for simplicity and decals and such. And so this is where we started with John Callies, was on the first race car he put together. And we had to make the body panels and have them styled. And that's where John Cafaro come out many times to my shop in order to do it. So we got, John brought a Fiero out to our shop, and he says, this is the first Fiero hand-built, and it's worth big bucks. Hundreds of thousands of dollars. I don't want you putting any screws into it, or any hammers on it. Don't break any windows, don't even mess the paint up. And I'm sitting there and thinking, shit, he's gonna own this shop. Anyways, we started with some two-way tape and styrofoam and everything, and then John come out and that's styled the race car body, and we pulled the molds off of it and made the parts. But before we did the mold work, as Callies was saying, he was lay model over to the wind tunnel. So after that was all done and approved, then we brought it back to the shop and made the parts. And then after he mounted them up and started working on his end, but he had other chassis that he was having in the work, and he sent another one out to the shop for us to start the other series of models. And that, well, that one is there. Okay. Yeah. Okay, here we are being modeled. I think John is standing over in the corner there. Isn't that you, John?
I would love that.
Yeah.
I would love that waistline back.
I would love that waistline back, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I would get it.
Yeah. So that was the.
He's got a whip there, you see the whip?
Yes.
Yeah. And as you notice, it looks like he's got a mask around his, fiberglass shop is fiberglass. So anyways, they're doing the model work off of the body panels that we took some of them and put them onto this chassis, the tube chassis, and this is what we're calling stage 2, and going into stage 3 where Callies needed bigger panels for the bigger tires, small ones up front, big ones in the rear though. And so with that, next slide. Yes, next one. There's the rear of it, and that's with the new type of spoiler that they wanted to put on it, and that's how wide these fenders were getting out for the exhaust system there. And the same thing there, we after the modeling work was done, then we'd pull the molds off it, make the body panels, and then ship them to John or to a race team that John was working with to put it together. And on the next slide, that's where one of the cars was put into the wind tunnel with the body panels on, so we could check it to make sure that all the model work was good for the aero work and the aerodynamics of it. And also you see the scoop up there, the over the roof scoop. Snorkel, yeah, that's what you call it. And the next one, I'm trying to go through them. This is one of the other actual race cars that I think was Clay Young was on that one, wasn't it, John?
This one, no,
This one, John, Chanel and I had to go out to Dole, and they wanted a pineapple on the hood, and John's going, "Oh my God," you know, and he's trying to talk to. They were going to sponsor the car, and somehow we got rid of that thing. You know,
You're going to enjoy this. I'm working in the yard. Did I get an invite down for the inaugural race? No. One of the engineers, name not to be mentioned, says, "Hey, we got a problem." I said, "What's that?" "We got a race car, a Fiero race car down here, and they got a bowl of fruit on the hood." "That's not what we would like." "Okay, what do you want me to do?" "Well, we'll pay for your ticket. Can you come down and overnight do a drawing that represents something better that we can show Dole Pineapple?" And the vice president was in. I said, "This is going to be great. I'll go to the racetrack. I'll beat the vice president." No. But I did make the engineers go to an art supply store to buy art supplies to do the drawing. And that was a hoot. We can't go in there. No. So I go in, I get supplies, I come out. So what they do is they go off and party, leave me in the room drawing. No drinks. Done, I half in the bag, and I've got this thing done, kind of roughed in. They said, "Hey, that looks pretty good." I said, "Great." So the next day they drive me to the airport. I'm thinking like, Jesus, I thought I'd be staying and have some fun. And that's where this came. And that was great. Isn't it a beautiful car? What do you think, huh? Yeah.
getting the one that has the side light and just accentuate it further out. Yeah, but then, smaller,
That makes sense because you're putting it out there, they need to have gas. Everything's slow with the lights on.
No, you're right. Yeah, that's
I know. Get your mind. Oh, boy. Go ahead, John. You can speak at home. Get your door your
Just hang on to it, John. We might get to you. Yes, these are the race panels that we made. Go back a little bit. These are all the different. Halfaker, I don't know if he was on both of these cars or whatever. Okay, thank you. And this is the body panels that we made from all the clay model work and things that John sent his chassis over there, and then the modelers, of course, come over and did it all. And that was down, I think, in Miami there, that race where they were. And I think they finished 1 and 2, didn't they? Okay, we can do the next slide. Then from this, we made streetable panels. And so this was a show car, so you got to have something to show. So there it is. Yeah. So these were similar.
There's a car there, you know. Oh. Come on, folks.
Okay. Good.
I think I just saw it.
Yeah. And that just used all this where John has talked about the mill, drill and mill and such, and that's how we did all the panels. And this was, a version, I think, stage 3 that we got into with the wider fenders on the back, and then the front wheels. Of course, I think that's what John Callies decided. They wanted 16s on the front and 18s in the rear. Where did John? Yeah.
Great size, John.
Yeah.
And I see you got the snorkel too.
Yeah. Good thing she didn't get sucked in on it. Right there. All right, and next slide. And this is some more of the show car stuff that we got involved with, and all the magazines that we got cover shoots on. And this one was done for a giveaway card and a car for Carcraft, and that was all modified with a body kit and toned down and a little bit here and there. And I don't know, somebody did the paint scheme for it and such. And this is just some of the Fieros that everybody worked on, and that's how they wound up. They made the covers of all the magazines at the time, the Carcraft, Car and Driver, and the Fiero, and the Pontiac. It was, this is only part of the magazines that were all the Fieros made.
You see the book up, can you go back? That Car and Driver fired up Fieros, that's going to be bid on. So somebody can get that book, and it's got all the Fiero stuff in it. It's a beautiful book. Fred's got that to put into the deal.
And here's just a modification on one of the existing, I think this is one where we went to the Fastback design, and from one of the original Fieros that John had, John Callies had, and so we had to modify that particular car, and then made all the modifications to it, and the modelers worked on that, and then we made the molds, and then this is where we're putting it on the car and mounting it.
Bob, this is what I was referring to, this car sitting over in the ballroom, this exact car.
Okay, I know, you mentioned that, and there was, I think there's what, 1 or 2 of them are done with that paint scheme, but one of them, they're different colors.
In the notchback version, and then you converted one of them to the Fastback.
Okay. Next one.
Guys, there's one thing. We had no these darn cell phones. We had no computers. We just did work and made it happen. And today, all you have is meetings, and nothing happens.
here's one of the pace cars that we for PPG that we used the same body panels that was from starting with John and then styling people to John's, and then we wound up with doing a lot of conversions for different companies and such through the years. And this is our brochure that we had, where we had 3 stage type panels. We had the Fiero Stage 1 and the Stage 2, and each one got a little bit more radical than the very first one. The first one was just strictly a front lower spoiler and rocker panels and a rear spoiler. Stage 3, that was done with the big wide panels and spoilers and different rockers and a different nose and such. So we modified, we made up the brochure because there was such a liking of all the kits, but the demand was there. The original race body that we did, and when they saw the pictures of it, when John had it all put together and it made the cover of Hot Rod magazine, or the fold out from Hot Rod, and we got a call from a Pontiac dealership out in Colorado, and he wanted 3 bodies. And I said, well, they don't fit on that. It's on a tube chassis. We got Fieros here, and we want to modify them to look like that car. And I said, they don't fit. They're just skin. I said, don't worry about it. We'll make them work. So we built them and shipped them, and they made them work. And that's when we really decided to start with the street type kits and make them available to all the people that might want to modify their Fiero. And here's where we got into drag racing with John. John approached us to use the body panels and make some modifications on to suit the drag racers. And the one on the left is Larry Morgan, and the one on the bottom there is Bruno Massel. That's Bruno is the one you see on. He's on a show and a TV show, and then plus announcer in NHRA drag racing.
Okay, so I want to talk about John Callies. He and I were the motorsports guys, but I just supported him, and he was the guy. Chevrolet would have had a dozen people and not got a quarter of what he got done. He knew everybody in the industry. He knew the racers. He went to every race. I bet you he didn't have 10 days off one year in 82, 83. He was the best vehicle engineer and engine engineer all rolled into one, and then he knew everybody in the aftermarket on top of that. And we were just so blessed to have him be one of ours at Pontiac. So John, you deserve that and more. And by the way, in his youth, he was a real fireball. He was, oh geez. He was a hard guy to run with. But I just wanted to mention that. John, you don't get all the credit you deserve.
We kind of idolize you guys, and what's really neat is earlier in the presentation, you had mentioned how you looked at the cars that are all at the hotel and everything, and you had mentioned the chop tops. And you guys were the innovators to start with the mention of chop tops. I have to introduce somebody that's very special to us. Mr. V8 Archie, he's in the audience right here. Stand up, Archie. That is the man who introduced us to the Chop Top Fiero. Do you need a mic? No, I love it. He's one of our heroes. He brought us the Chop Top Fiero, and they're very popular. And V8. The V8s, yes, we know him as V8 Archie. When he was the first ones to start putting in the the V8s and the Fieros clear back in the 80s. So here's to you, Archie. Thank you for coming. Well, that kind of concludes our guest speakers. Jen has a few words to say.
Thank you all so much for coming tonight. I wanted to especially thank Fiero John of John Miller Car Care for being one of our sponsors for this event, along with his club, Mid-Atlantic Fiero Owners Association. And I also want to give a special shout out to David Emerling, because David's become one of us. I realized that last week when he sent someone an email and he said, we are planning an event and we'd like you to be involved in our event. So David, thank you. You were an instrumental player along with several other individuals in this room in getting these guys here tonight. We're so grateful for your support, and one of these days we might get you in a Fiero. Thanks everybody. Tomorrow morning, registration opens. Thank you all so much for coming tonight. Have a good and safe ride home.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great night. See everybody at tomorrow.
If you want to see more content like this, please hit that like, subscribe, and push that little bell icon. Thank you.
So
Should be, what, right here?
Oh, you want here? Okay, sure. There you go, brother.
Thank you so much. You bet. About 60 of these. Huh?